I don't know how to describe what I'm going to try to describe. This process by which words are words that are more appropriate for more trivial circumstances are being utilized for more serious occasions or to describe more serious circumstances. And I only have two examples I can think of right now. But these are both examples that I've seen many instances of, and so this is not a spotty or an unusual thing. This is something that permeates the way that people talk. Maybe more people from a certain age group. I don't know, but I don't. But I'm not even sure about that. I think much as I would like to say, much as I'd like to dog on or dunk on millennials or Gen Z or make this a generational thing, I think this is something a little bit more broad than all of that. So yeah, I'm not talking about brain rot. I'm not talking about brain rot terms. Um, uh, so no, I have just two words in mind. Okay, the first is gross. Now I grew up with gross. I grew up knowing gross, in the colloquial sense. I don't really know. It's an interesting question how gross ever came to mean what it meant to kids in the 70s and 80s, because I think we were probably the first ones to start to use it. I get that impression. I don't see sitcoms from the 60s. I don't see I don't remember My Three Sons or I Dream of Jeannie or or Gilligan's Island, or I don't remember any of the characters there saying gross about things, saying "ooh, that's gross." So it seems like gross first came about at some point in the 70s and 80s. And when I was growing up, it was basically what kids said. Um, I don't think it was really something that adults said that much, or it eventually spread to adults, but it started with kids. So we would, like if your dog threw up on the front porch, it'd be like, "Ooh, that's gross." Um, Gross just meant something that was disgusting or appalling, or it often involved, vomit or other uh, other um, excretions of the body, or it could be like school lunch food that's just inedible. You would maybe think that that's pretty gross, or Um, so it had a very defined meaning. The meaning was it's something that's disgusting, something that's appalling aesthetically, something that you would want to avoid seeing, uh, and especially want to avoid tasting. The idea of eating something that's gross was like the ultimate in gross out. That was another term that went along with it. Getting grossed out. Um, there was and there were jokes. What's grosser than gross? And I'm not going to detail any of them right now, but that was what kids were saying to each other in the 70s and the 80s when I was a youngster. Um, so so that was gross. Gross didn't have he didn't describe a person as gross. Well, you would describe a person as gross if he had disgusting habits, or if he was just um, uh, if he never blew his nose, or you know what I'm saying. Um, uh, or if he had crusty patches of skin, and pus was leaking out. That you might say that person, and he didn't. If he had really poor hygiene, you might think of that person as gross. But it wasn't. It was for aesthetic offenses. Now, um, more recently, it seems like that's still what gross is supposed to mean. I get that words change meaning over time, but it seems like right now, there are people who are using gross, which gross has it still has this very trivial connotation to it. If you describe something as gross, it doesn't sound serious. Okay. Um, but you have people, and seems like something that feminists do a lot, or where they're talking about men who are gross because they're rapists, or they're harassers, or they're toxically masculine. Um, you know, when I so if you are talking about somebody who's a rapist, he's not gross. He may be gross. I don't know if he may have a pus filled face, or his eyes might be leaking might be leaking pus, and I don't know. I want to stay away from the more obvious things. Maybe there's sticky mucus like membrane over covering all of his big fat face, and maybe he's disgusting to look at. Maybe he smells bad. He doesn't change his underwear, or doesn't wear underwear, and not in a sexy way. But okay, so for example, Jabba the Hutt was gross. He was a gross creature. He was disgusting. He was described as vile. I think in the opening crawl of Return of the Jedi, Jabba the Hutt is described as vile, which it's good. It's a more elevated way of saying gross. Although vile means more than just disgusting physically. Vile is a word that I think ought to be used to describe people who are bad people who do bad things, or bad behavior that people engage in. Vile has more weightiness to it, but I'm finding it and again, I don't. It's not like it's a capital offense or anything. But there's something that really bugs me about it, and I am the language police, I guess, in a way. I'm not the language police in the PC woke kind of way, but I am language policing in the sense that I think George Orwell did it, or trying to live up to Orwell's example in his excellent essay, Politics in the English Language, where he talks about how language often gets hijacked or gets used carelessly, and that opens the door for great rhetorical mischief. And there's something that just really bothers me about, and there's something that just disturbs me about describing a person as gross when what you mean is that he's vile, that he's evil, that he's that he's, I don't know, a disgusting pig of a man. All of those things are better. You're talking about his character. You're talking about his behavior. Okay. There's something infantilizing about referring to a person like that as gross. So, so that's the first one. The second term is the famous suck. Like, that is to say, it sucks, or you suck, or this town sucks. Suck as a verb, meaning it's terrible. It's you know, it's no good. It's not you know, you can suck in a way. You can suck as a person if you have low character, or you can just suck at baseball, or suck at bowling, or suck at you know, some skill. You're just no good at it. And so suck also, the term suck, you know, to mean something other than, you know, what it actually means physically, it has an interesting etymology that I also think goes back to. It's also another Gen X word. I think it's a word I will claim as part of the Gen X generation, the Gen X demographic, because I remember, possibly I've talked about this before, I don't know, but I remember, like, in the 70s and in the early part of the 80s, suck was actually a bad word. Suck was actually like a cuss word. If you said something sucked, you know, you could get suspended. It'd be like saying shit, or you know, or fuck, or something like that. It was a word that was extremely vulgar, and it is vulgar because obviously what it's referring to. You know, it's referring to, I think, more often to not cunnilingus, but what's the other thing called? I can't think of the formal term for it right now, but blowjobs, okay. And of course, I think the idea is that it's like, if you're it's like the shame of being somebody. I think it's rooted in what you could call homophobia, in a sense, in that, you know, it's about, you know, it's saying that you're a man who sucks other men's genitals, and that's why it's an insult. That's what makes it an insult. Although I think that's the origin of it as a vulgar term, and I think that's the origin of it as an insult. You know, it has this taint of alleging that you're not right sexually, that you've debased yourself, you know, in the way that a man doing that to another man is seen as debasing, specifically to the man with the mouth, not to the man who's got the other man's mouth on his penis. Although it should be seen as degrading to both of them, but for some reason it's more degrading to the person who's doing the sucking. All right. Well, that was a little more graphic than I wanted to get. I try to be a little bit more delicate here, but I also want to tell it like it is. But anyway, there was some point at which suck just changed from something that was vulgar and something that was almost a profanity to something that was, you know, sort of rude, but not really not really vulgar in the sense that it had been before. And I don't know when this change exactly happened. I think it wasn't maybe until the 90s that we started seeing things. I'm remembering there's some, like, maybe a somewhat early Simpsons episode where Homer says, "This sucks." And it's just sort of seen as a, um, it's more like saying something stinks, right? In the 70s and 80s, if you wanted to insult somebody else, but not be vulgar, not be, if you wanted to be mean, but also to avoid saying something that would get you kicked out of school, or that would make your movie maybe rated PG instead of G. If you said it, if you uttered this phrase in it, you would say that it stinks. Love stinks. The song by Jay Giles Band, Love Stinks. That was from, I think, the very early 80s. If you say something stinks, it's still got that still packs a punch. It's not like it's a toothless insult. You're still expressing strong emotion, because it's not, our olfactory senses are well, they're underrated, right? If something smells good, or something or someone smells good, that draws us to them. If something or someone smells bad, that's that's somehow worse than them looking bad, or worse than them sounding bad. Which is an interesting. It's interesting that the sense of smell can have so powerful of a hold on us, and cause us to judge things more harshly. So anyway, I'm getting off the topic here, but going off on a tangent about about saying, your team stinks, or your dad stinks, or your family stinks, or this class stinks. You could say all those things, and you'd still be expressing something. You would be letting it be known how passionately you hated whatever it was that you were talking about. But to say that it sucked, that was going far. That was going further. That was going into dangerous territory. The territory of the profane, the territory of the obscene. But at some point, weirdly along the way, sucks became something that was just kind of harmless. It was still rude. It was still, it still expressed a strong revulsion, and it still was insulting, but it was less of a ooh, he did not just say that kind of thing. And I think it was maybe the early to mid 90s. It was a really strange thing where saying that something sucks became, went from being a cuss word to not a cuss word, to being a harmless word, basically a harmless word, just like saying something. Today, if you said something sucks, or you said, it's like saying something stinks. There's really not that big of a difference. But I'm telling you, when we were growing up in the 70s and 80s, that saying something sucked, or a person sucked, or a band sucked, or a movie sucked, that was much more of a that was expressing a much more strongly negative sentiment than saying that it stinks, that it stinks, or that it stunk. But okay, but today I'm seeing that, like, people saying things, talking about tragedies, and saying his entire family was raped and murdered. And of course that sucks. But, no, like, I mean, there's, I don't think that when you say something sucks, I think that, again, just like with calling something gross, saying that it sucks does not have the kind of gravitas if you're describing some atrocity, if you're describing some real tragedy, you know, like, like ma- the mass genocide of this particular group during this particular war. That really sucked. Humanity sucks because we keep committing these vicious atrocities against each other. We keep raping children and burning down churches with the entire congregation inside them so that they die horribly. That sucks when soldiers do that during wartime. That really sucks. Like, but I've heard suck being used that way, like to describe things that, again, you need words, a word with more gravitas. To say it sucks just trivializes it. And maybe it's possible that you out there who's watching this video haven't heard these words being used in this way, but I have, and I've heard it used on multiple occasions. And I just think there's something, I don't know what it's symptomatic of, or if it's there's something about using a word that denotes triviality, to mean something that is far from trivial. Okay. I got mono last week. That sucked. I was in bed. I had a fever. That sucked. Okay. And I got mono, so I missed, my nephew's christening. That sucked. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. That's good. That's appropriate. But not to describe real terrible events or tragedies or whatever. Just like gross should not be what you say about somebody who's a bad person who does terrible things. Not calling him gross, just doesn't cut it. So anyway, those are my thoughts as the language police. But I'm a language policeman for the good. I'm a language policeman after the manner of Orwell, not after the manner of HR people or I don't know, women's studies programs, gender studies programs. So there you go.